if there is a message of positivity, if there is a mindset shift that helps someone overcome an obstacle, if there is a place where self-control is gained, I mean, these are all the values that are in there. If there is a place where more vision is granted, then I feel like the words in there are important and valuable.
What is your favorite mantra?
And when people ask us why we're so successful in real estate, it's because it's all about building relationships, period.
A lot of us start things that we don't finish. So what gave you the courage to pull that off the shelf? Welcome to Own the Room with Pam and Gayle. I'm Pamela Santy, and I am so excited that you're here. This podcast is all about celebrating women who change the energy the minute they walk into the room. Women who lead with purpose, authenticity, and courage. Each week, my co-host, Gayle Phillips, and I sit down with incredible women in real estate and leadership. Women who are building not only successful businesses, but meaningful legacies. We'll talk about mindset, the missteps, and the magic that comes with truly owning your space in life and in business. So whether you're tuning in this morning between commutes, appointments, welcome. You belong in this conversation.
Thanks, Pam. And I'm Gayle Phillips. And together we're exploring what it really means to own the room. You know, when we created this show, we wanted to spotlight women who led differently, who bring both strength and grace into every decision, every conversation, every challenge. And today's guest is Colleen Souza. Welcome, Colleen.
Perfect example.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
So, Colleen, let's start at the beginning. You began your career as an educator, then moved into business leadership, and now are an author. Tell us about your journey and what catalyzed the transition.
I like to say to a lot of people, I still don't know what I want to do when I grow up. And I think that's a big piece of it. I sort of live, my husband Brian and I, so those that are watching this that are in the real estate world know that I work side by side with my husband Brian. We decided to title our life almost 36 years ago when we got married, The Great Adventure. And so we titled we're going to live the great adventure. And I think part of the transitions and the things that I've done is the fact that we've really tried to continue to live that great adventure throughout our lives and know that everything is in progress. Everything is a process. So the transitions, I just do what I love to do. And when I feel like it's time or opportunity arises, I've made transitions to new things from, like you said, I was a classroom teacher for almost 20 years. And I loved it. I left at the top of my game. I was having a great time. Really? There was no reason for me to leave except that the opportunity arose to work beside my husband. We were putting 2 kids into college at that time. And it just felt like if I could get behind him and be the wind beneath his wings, he could just do so much more. And within 6 months of being his administrative assistant, I had my license and I was out there and I was going and selling right alongside him, building relationships with our clients right alongside him and having a blast. This transition into being an author is just something that was always on my heart. In fact, I like to tell people I left the classroom 15 years ago to assist Brian and write my book. And I finally got around to it in the last 2 years.
So 15 years ago, you knew there was a book in you.
Oh, I knew there was a book in me, yes. Always. I mean, when I taught, I did teach English, and I did love writing, and I did love the process of creating through thought. Prior to that, going back into the days before I was a real professional, I was a songwriter and I had a band. So I used to write it through like poetry and lyrics. And so there was always stories in me. And part of the reason that I feel so driven to get the book out there and talk to people is that I believe everybody has a story. And not all of them will end up writing it, but they sure could share it. And so I like to get out there and gather the stories and share them. But yeah, there was always a book in there, always.
Are you a singer?
I am. I actually have a vocal music performance and conducting minor from Fresno State, but I don't say that's a lot of vocabulary to say. But I am a singer. I play 3 instruments. I play the piano, the guitar, and the flute.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah, and not very well. Please don't ask me to pull them out right now because it's been a while, a little rusty. But
and your children are pretty well rounded as well.
Yes, they are, and they're all very creative in their own ways.
Yeah, right.
They are.
Right.
They are.
Gosh, I tell you, digging out all sorts of good stuff about you.
Yeah.
Okay, so When I saw this book that you had written, when I saw just the title of it, I was immediately, it immediately grabbed me because I love mantras. I love them, and I live by them as well. As a matter of fact, I use them all the time when we're coaching our real estate team. I will say things like one of my favorites, which comes from Sharon Shavasa, be where your feet are. Be where your feet are. And that it's such a simple little saying, but it's so powerful.
Absolutely.
And I found that I haven't got a chance because your book is so new, and we're just so privileged to be one of the first doing this podcast with you. I don't know about the first, but we're gonna take claim to that.
We'll call it that.
We'll take.
You're
take
getting
that.
me before mine's launched, so there you go.
There you go. We're early on, so we've downloaded some excerpts and got a little bit of information, but I cannot wait to read the whole thing.
Good.
Jumping right into that. One of the ones that I just loved was about the lemonade stand.
Oh.
I love that. Can you
Sure.
expand?
That's mantra number 20. And it's funny because I will share real quick. When I was putting it together, I went to my kids and I said, okay, what are the most important? Because like you said, to define, mantras are just those repetitive sayings that embed themselves. So when people hear it, and they're like, well, what's a mantra? And, you know, there's a lot of, is that Eastern? Well, no, what it means, yes, the word does come from that. And why we called them that was there anything that's repeated over and over again until they become an embedded part of your thinking.
Right.
And so I had lots of quotes. A lot of people would call them quotes, but living by the quotes didn't sound very good. So we stuck with mantras. In my household, that's what we called them, in my classroom and then in our office walls of our business. And they're just up there and you say them over and over again. Well, always stop at the lemonade stand. My kids helped me decide which ones were going to be in the book. We had them write down their favorites.
Yeah.
And that one, all three of them agreed upon. And it's about generosity. So really my mantras are each tied to, as I've shared with you guys beforehand when we were talking, they're each tied to a value. And I think that some of those core values that we were raised on, I think that sometimes they get amiss in all the crazy of the world today. And so each and every one of the mantras in my book is tied really, what's more important is to the value that it represents. And then, you know, and then that's how that mantra derived meaning in our life. Well, always stop at the lemonade stand is tied to generosity. And so in our household, being that my husband and I are entrepreneurs and we have that entrepreneurial spirit, we really wanted to encourage our kids or any other children we saw that are out there trying to make their 10 cents on their glass of lemonade or $2 or whatever it is now, that we wanted to encourage that entrepreneurship. We wanted to encourage the work ethic. And so we always told our kids, we don't care where we are. We don't care if we have to make 3 U-turns to get there. If you see a lemonade stand, tell us to stop. And so that's pretty much what we did. And it carries through. They're that way. And I have a story in the book of one time when my daughter's with me and she just, you know, we don't give the $1 and you don't always take the lemonade. You give a 5, you give a 10. And then you tell the kids why you're giving it to them. Yeah. Good job for working hard. Never stop thinking that you can do whatever you want to do with your life. My daughter was home. My 20-year-old was home from college on an internship this summer. And when she was coming home from work one afternoon, she passed a little girl selling stuff. And she happened to be selling crafts. And she walked into my little office and tosses me this plastic heart. And I grab it and I go, what? You're telling me you love me? She goes, well, I do. And there was a little bracelet inside of it. She goes, but I passed this. And this little girl's raising money to go to camp. And so I gave her a 20. Here you go. Have a bracelet, Mom. And so I left it on my desk as a reminder that even at 20 years old, my daughter understands. And I do have to share that just this weekend, we were in Phoenix. Our youngest goes to Arizona State, and we were there at Parent Weekend. And we were on a bus tour with a bunch of parents having loads of fun with college girls. And we stopped at this one fraternity party we were headed to. They had this little mapped out events to show their parents their college life. These parents were brilliant. They lived next to a house where fraternities have, you know, their boys living, and they were going to have a party. And this mom had her girls out there with a little lemonade stand.
Oh, for heaven's
and
sake.
So I stopped at the bus door and I'd met all the parents, and the girls all knew from my daughter I'd written a book. And I said, okay, everybody stop. Mantra number 20, Grace, what is it? Always stop at the lemonade stand. Be generous. So as all the people got off the bus, it was wonderful. First of all, my husband and I were shaking hands with the mom. Good, brilliant thinking, because we weren't the only people arriving at this event. But the dads were pulling out big bills. The girls were all. So those little kids made a ton of money at that stop. But we got back on the bus and I had to be the teacher I was. What did we all just learn? What did we all just learn? But I think it's important because we don't live in a society where thinking of others comes first and giving to others comes first. So I use this to teach my children. I used it in my classroom. And like I said, we use it with our, employees too, wherever we are. We'll be with friends and we'll stop a car and they'll go, what are you doing? We're like, we just passed a lemonade stand. We got to go back. And it causes conversation. That generosity it needs to be a part of who we are on a daily basis. So yeah, that's one of my favorites.
Can you take that back to your childhood? Is that something that was mirrored that?
No. I mean, I had loving parents. And I say that throughout the book. If you buy the book, and please do, I was one of the most loved children on the planet. I never doubted for a second of my upbringing that my parents loved me. But there were a lot of social skills I did not learn. And that was part of what Brian and I really wanted as we became parents, was we were focused on who do we want our kids to be? And so, you always try to glean the best of what you were. But I really wasn't raised with a lot of generosity. And what I really, really, really wanted to do was be different in that way. And I think that's probably why maybe I go to the extreme the other way. But yeah, it's important. I think it's super important.
I'll never be able to pass a lemonade stand in the future. So you've changed my life.
Anytime you see a kid doing something,
Yes.
My littlest one, we laugh because, oh my goodness, she was our little entrepreneur. But I will never forget, there was one weekend, and my kids are so much difference in age. If you have read the book, you'll know this, but my son is almost 12 years older than his baby sister. And so he was home from college, and little Gracie always had a business going on the side, always. And she made all kinds of things out of duct tape. And she would make you pocket lockers and wallets and purses. And, I still have a box full of duct tape accessories in my world. And she went out to a park by her house. She got her brother to sign dance for her when he was home from college. And that process. And I know that she did those things because she was inspired, because she saw us reward those things. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's so important.
Absolutely.
So important.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like to me, it hasn't been just what you've talked about in your home. It's what you've role modeled with your children.
Huge.
Yeah, huge. It's absolutely huge. Kids are so smart. They are not going to listen to what you say, but they are always going to remember what you did.
And it's not, and it's not just children, because you said, you were sharing the quote from the one that you like to use when you train agents. Part of the inspiration of getting these words down was just that I realized over the years that these were things I use to raise my children. Right. But the best tenets of parenting are leadership, and the best tenets of leadership come from our parenting experience. And it's a nice allegory to sort of share a lot of the stories through, because everyone's been a part of some family, and so they can kind of go, okay, well, yeah, I remember a little bit of that when I was growing up, even if you're not yet a parent. But it's so important as we're training our teams. I've trained a lot of team members over the years as an entrepreneur and in the real estate world. And you have to have those same values. You have to model them always. And it's modeling. It's huge.
Because, and if you're all lip service, and then you don't role model what it is, as a matter of fact, you do the opposite. They will call you out on it. They will nail you to the wall if you don't. And
the saddest thing, if you're watching this and you're thinking you're in the industry of any sales, but especially real estate, it's not when they call you out on it. It's when they never call you back.
Oh, isn't that
and
the
that's true, because they see it. They see the authenticity.
Yes.
They see who you really are. And if you're not doing the things that you talk about,
that's right.
You'll be like, well, why don't I ever keep business?
Yeah.
And when people ask us why we're so successful in real estate, it's because it's all about building relationships, period. Selling a house is part of it, but it's really about the relationships we've built over the years.
Isn't it?
And those relationships are built through things like having those values and those
those relationships really are the gifts that keep on giving.
Oh,
There's no doubt.
I'd be remiss to not share that probably half of my closest friends these days at some point purchased a home or worked with us to sell a home, and the relationship I built during that time just stuck. And we still go to lunch, we still go to dinner. They get my book, and when the book arrived, they're the ones that sent pictures to me saying, "I got your book today." So they became friends. Yeah, definitely.
And family. I mean, and
it is.
And the thing about real estate is that we get, and I'll use this as an example, and because I just love these kids. He had never lived in a house in his entire life. He had been raised in an apartment. And I sold him and he had just gotten married, him and his new wife, their first home. Not only their first home together, but their very first home. And fast forward, I think 8 or 9 years, something like that. They call me, they pick up the phone and they give me a call and they want me to come and sell that home. They have 2 beautiful little girls now. And I had stayed in touch with them, but they feel like family. Yeah, they feel it's like I got invited to their baby shower.
Yes.
And I mean, it is real estate. It can be such a wonderful giving relationship, and it grows your family. There's no doubt about that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I loved another example that you gave in your book about you. I believe you said about driving. And you were talking about, and I may have this wrong, but the example should tell you what I'm talking about, where your children, one of them who was in the car with you was about 14 years old. And you knew they were going to be getting their driver's license. And so I thought this was so clever on your part, where you said something like, I'm watching this guy behind me and he doesn't seem like he's paying attention. So I'm going to put my blinker on so he can see that I'm moving from one. And I thought, oh my gosh, that is so brilliant. It's so little, but such a great way of teaching them safety in driving.
Well, that's from the mantra. It's number 21. Begin with the end in mind. And for those of you that are Stephen Covey fans, and I say this at the beginning of my book, we don't take credit for any of the mantras. We just want to show you how we put them in our lives and how we took those to a level that meant something. So this is a Stephen Covey principle, but it's funny because I had 20 mantras. That sounded like a nice even number to write a little book about. And my son calls me while he knows I'm in the middle of writing it because they've been brainstorming with me. And he was going from, he worked in real estate for a while. He was going from a meeting and on a transaction where it's buy, sell, all kinds of stuff going on. And he calls me and he goes, Mom, if you do not have begin with the end in mind in the book, you've got to put it in there because I'm telling you right now. Like nobody thought about what the end of this was going to look like, I think, because, so he was talking about the different dynamics of it. So I thought, well, what a perfect number 21. Yeah. Begin with the end in mind. But the value we attached to that in our household, that mantra was vision. And so that's what you're talking about right there. And I talk a lot about that because, whether you're in real estate and you're dealing with a transaction and you have to think about all the pieces that are involved. When I was a teacher, if you're teaching a unit, I share this and it used to drive me crazy. If you're a teacher and which standards and which things are supposed to be taught to the kids, and you can't just go, okay, well, I'm just going to randomly start teaching, and because this is the part I like, and I'm going to really spend some time on the stuff I like in all of this, and not really be focused on what the assessment is to make sure the kids have learned. Yeah. So when I was teaching, I would always start with, what is my assessment? If this is how I'm measuring their learning over here, then what am I going to do to make sure that is a fair measurement of their learning, rather than going, oh, they all failed the test. What's the matter with these kids? Which I would hear a lot, right? And
in the teacher's lounge,
right? And they're like, these kids don't get anything anymore. To me, if 1 or 2 kids didn't get it, then I needed to, do some reteaching, or, I knew they weren't doing their homework or they were being knuckleheads, whatever it was. But the bottom line was, when 20 of the 25 kids are
not getting it,
there were always 30 or 35 kids in my class, but when the majority of the kids were not getting it, the problem wasn't the kids, the problem was the teacher. Right. Exactly. And I needed to go, okay, and so I would do a reteach, I would do a reevaluation, I would go back and figure out what it was that I missed. So I often started with the end in mind and the assessment, and then I built my units backwards from that. And that comes down to understanding, it's called backwards mapping, and I would do it with my own kids. If they're going to be driving a car and they're starting to pay attention, or especially now parents make them put their phones down and pay attention, kids can't tell you what street names are because it's that street where the Johnny Quick is. No, what's that street's name? You pass it every day. Yeah. Put your phone down. So I would begin with that end in mind, telling my kids, okay, and I'd ask a lot of questions. I said, what do you think I should do now? Okay, I've got to get on the freeway in one intersection. What should I do? Well, you need to get over. Okay, and you start having those conversations and you make them think about it so that when they get there, it's not like brand new news to them. And that's in anything, I think.
What is your favorite mantra and why?
One is my favorite mantra and why. One of my very favorites, and being that I was just with my my Gracie this weekend, that's my baby. When she's version 3.0 and she's 9 and 12 years younger than the other two. So I had lots of time to experiment on her still and know what didn't matter and what did matter because I'd already, two had survived past the age of 10, which is, a miracle in itself. So I had been watching this guy on social media who had his daughter say things in the mirror, positive to herself every day. And I thought it was the cutest thing. So I made a decision when Gracie got out of the car to start kindergarten that she wasn't going to leave me every day without saying, I'm smart, I'm beautiful, and I'm going to have a great day. And that's mantra number 10. And it's about manifesting. It's about self-confidence really is in there too.
Right.
There's a lot of these that weave together, but that's what I told her. And she would say it every single day. And she would get out. And it would be lip service after a while. Smart, beautiful, have a great day, boom. Right? I'm like, all right. But the bottom line was she thought about that every single day. She thought about that about herself every single day as she got up and left. And we took note that during COVID, for example, she was home. She was one of the COVID teenagers. She left high school the last part of her freshman year and didn't get really to return to full campus till she was a senior here in California. And there was this part of it where a lot of kids were struggling, but I noticed for her, who's a very confident young woman, she seemed very depressed. She wasn't smiling much. So she and I went to coffee one day and we sat down and we talked about, why do you think this is? And it dawned on me because she wasn't leaving us every day. She wasn't saying that every day. And so she and I made a decision that she would get up and still say it to me every morning as I got my coffee and walked down the hall to my office and she went off to her classroom. And it began to turn her back around. And to this day, if she's got a big interview, if she's got something going on, she'll call me and she'll go, I'm smart, I'm beautiful, and I've got this nailed. And, though it's not my favorite choice in the whole wide world, she's announced to us that she's going to get a tattoo. That's very generational. And so we said, okay. And her dad's like, no, I don't. She goes, I want mom to write it out and it's going to go across my arm and it's going to say, I'm smart, I'm beautiful, and have a great day. So he's like, all right, fine, I'll give into that one. But she's like, I want it to forever be on there to remind me. And
God,
so,
I love that.
it's so...
And I don't like in tattoos, but
I'm not a tattoo girl at all, and neither
that.
is her dad. He's like not a tattoo guy at all, but he looked and he's like, well, she's going to embody what we've taught her. So I guess I have to shut my mouth and realize that's what kids do. But it meant a lot to me because I realized it meant that much to her that she would make that permanent decision. So that's special because I just think adults, children, anyone, start today picking a phrase. And I like to say, what's your mantra to a lot of this? These are ours. Yeah. These worked really well for us. And they're embedded in our world, but how do you see making good choices? How do you see integrity? How do you see positivity? How do you see overcoming obstacles? We have our phrases. What's your mantra? And in that one in particular, for a guy, I got this. I'm strong. I'm going to win today. I mean, what is it that you're going to say every day? Yeah. It might not be that you're a princess and you're smart and you're beautiful and you have a great day, but what is it? And you start to say that and it doesn't take long until you believe it.
Yeah. Is there one that you use for yourself?
I have to. My girls get on my case. Like my 29-year-old, my middle child, she called me today and we caught up on our weekends and I shared what I'd done and she shared what she'd had an adventure for the weekend. And then as she was hanging up, she goes, okay, I got to get to work, Mom. I got to get out the door. And I go, okay. And I said, what are you going to do? And she goes, I'm smart and beautiful. And she's so funny. She goes, and I'm very coordinated. She trips and falls a lot. We have a lot of jokes about that. She's Sandra Bullock and when she falls down a lot. Oh, and so she goes, and I've got two balanced feet. And that's her joke with me every day. But they get on me if I don't. Like if I, doing this book, there's been it's a lot of exposure to tell your story and get it out there. So I'll have some really down days. And if either of my girls see it, they pull me aside and they're like, no, right now. What are your words? You know where this comes from. So yeah, I try really hard. I do. I put up Post-its everywhere. I write on bathroom mirrors with dry erase markers. If I'm struggling, and I highly recommend it, if you're really struggling, to women, I know we're speaking to women here. Yeah. It's a rough go. There's so much coming at us all the time. Pick your place, pick your place where you can stick a Post-it note. If it's on the fridge, if it's if it's on the rearview mirror in your car, dry erase markers are great on glass because you can wipe them right off and start again.
Yeah.
Just make your note. And because sometimes the message needs to change because you get really confident and you're feeling really good about one particular thing. It's time to move on to the next one.
Yeah.
But just put them where you see them, because if you don't, you'll get caught up in the spiral. Definitely.
I notice on your book you've got Post-it notes.
Yes, I'm going to grab it for wherever it is on the camera. I was working with a graphic artist to put the cover of the book together, and she created 4 different covers for me. And she didn't know me. She just said, what are some things that when this one came out, I just took it to my husband and daughter. It was over the summer, and they both went, well, obviously the Post-it notes, Mom. Yeah. If you walk into my office, I have one of those screens that's supposed to expand my computer so it's bigger.
Yeah.
I can't. It's covered with Post-it notes. Because every time something comes up, I stick them there. They're everywhere in our world. And so it was an irony to me that was one of the suggested covers. I'm like, that's me right there. But it's important.
You wear a lot of hats.
I do.
You're a team owner. You're an entrepreneur. You're a mother. You're a woman. You're a sister. You're a friend. You're a wife. You're an author. Mm-hmm. How do you ever battle? I know for me, when I'm sitting here right now, and talking with you and Pam, that I feel like, why am I here? Who am I to be having my own podcast? This is just crazyville. And am I doing something am I in alignment with who I am? Do you ever battle imposter syndrome or anything like that?
Yes, daily. I battle a lot of syndromes, and I think that the biggest thing is that, and it's why, this book was finished 2 years ago, and then we had a lot of life things happen, and I put it on the shelf, and I struggled with pulling it back out, and my sweet husband looked at me and said, "It's your turn, it's your time, you need to do this, get it out there." About 8 months ago now, don't sit on it. One of the mantras is don't coulda, shoulda, woulda,
Yeah.
Don't live with regrets. He didn't want me to live with regrets. And imposter syndrome has plagued me during the publication of this book, because I am sharing with folks, and yes, I have a background in all these different things. I have a master's in education and psychology. I have a lot of background in things that allow me to write this book. Mm-hmm. But then all of a sudden I'm sharing these things with folks and I'm thinking, who am I to be sharing this story? Or is this right? Or is this true? And am I good enough? And am I a lot of different things? Mm-hmm. And yes, I face it every day.
And
every day.
From me, why is it me that's carrying this message? As opposed to somebody else that we think is authentic, is really the people that are supposed to carry this message. But I think it comes down to, it is us. Mm-hmm. We are the ones that have experienced the life. We are the ones that have had the life stories, the life lessons, the perspective, the ability to create and generate a beautiful book with wonderful ways to help other people. So why not you?
And every day the going back to, which mantra is important. All of them are. I have to live all of them, but I spent probably 3 to 4 days a week going out on my back porch with a cup of coffee, and just, in the summer before it got too hot, or right now as it gets a little warmer, but just saying out loud, I have a message that's worth sharing. People's lives will be changed by my message. Yeah. There is somebody that needs to hear this, and that's why I did this. All the things I have to say over and over again, because I get, you get stressed out, and then there's I'm going to send it out into the world, and what if someone doesn't like it? Then they don't like it. Yeah. That's okay. But what about the 5 people that, pick it up that day and go, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I read this.
Yeah. It really means something too.
We have a bunch of quotes, and there are mantras a little bit. And one of them is called own the moment, own the message, own the room. Mm-hmm. Same kind of concept.
Absolutely.
Is that you just make it authentically you. And this is your moment.
Yeah.
This is your message.
Absolutely.
And this is your room.
Yeah.
So we are excited that you
I know,
are
I'm loving it.
Stepping forward, stepping into your power, stepping into your womanhood and your ability to articulate all of this, so that way we can take it back and help our lives be better.
And I think that's ultimately my goal. 100% is if somebody has for such a time as this, we are craziness going on all around us every day, and if there is a message of positivity, if there is a mindset shift that helps someone overcome an obstacle, if there is a place where self-control is gained, I mean, these are all the values that are in there. If there is a place where more vision is granted, then I feel like the words in there are important and valuable. And I think that is why, and that's what motivates me. It really does. It really, really does. Because I think for anyone that's listening, you just have to believe in yourself, because I look at my story and where I came from and who I am, and there isn't any reason I have any of the success that I have in life, except that you daily get up and make that decision to be better than you were. We have a big thing on our office wall that says "Get 1% better," and that's 1% better every day. And that's just my thing. 1%'s not a lot, but if you do it every day, over time, it's compounded, correct?
It's like if I gave you a penny every day and then twice amount.
Yeah.
At the end
The
of the
compound
month,
effect. I love
like,
Darren Hardy. I love that book.
$10 million.
Yeah.
Or something like
Suddenly,
that.
do you want a penny or do you want $100 right now?
Yeah.
Compound the penny, because
Compound
every
that
single day it becomes something great. And there's some days you don't. There's some days you miss it, and that's okay. Take a deep breath and start up the next
That's
day.
right.
And as a woman who has a lot of different, more hats than a milliner's shop, you just have to remember that. You know what I mean? That it's a journey.
I want to take just a little step backwards. I mean, you said something that's kind of reverberating in my mind about how you finished this book 2 years ago. A lot of us start things. And sounds like you finished it, but I'm still gonna say a lot of us start things that we don't finish. So what gave you the courage to pull that off the shelf and do what you're doing now?
How do
I know
I
you
answer that
said
one?
Brian
I
come
am super fortunate because I am married to my very best friend.
Yeah.
And it does make a difference when your best friend gives you a lot of encouragement. My children gave me a lot of encouragement. I've had a lot of people who knew I was writing a book telling the story of using my family as the allegory in the story. And they're like, oh, you got to get it out there because my kids are getting older and I need to know what to do when they hit this next phase, that kind of a thing. So that was a part of it, yes.
Is there an aha moment that you remember?
I had a couple where I helped some people and I knew I was using these exact principles. And it caused me, and I'm not, we lost, part of the reason I put the book on the shelf is we lost both of my husband's parents very quickly. My mother-in-law died suddenly, and then his father had been sick. And Brian moved to where his dad lived, and he took over. And I was juggling all things trying to keep us going here while we were dealing with that. And within 2 months, his father was gone. That causes a life transition and a shift. And so as we were working through all that, I realized more than ever, it's the no coulda, shoulda, woulda. It's living without regrets. I didn't want, yes, it could have been just nice memoirs for my children.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's how my mom raised us. But I began to realize as I was working through those things and helping my husband through all that transition and other folks that anytime that we can add positivity into the world, anytime that we can make a positive change, it's the idea of the stone hitting the water and having the rippling effect.
Right.
If it doesn't seem, you're thinking, well, who am I? I'm just Colleen Souza living in Fresno, Clovis, California, and there's a big world around me. Yeah, but I learned that sometimes we have no idea who that person next to us is that we have a positive effect upon, and then they're going to go out and have a positive effect because of something they've gained, and it can have such a rippling effect that is so much bigger than us. So it goes back to just understanding that we're all here to take care of one another and serve each other, and that drives me.
There's so much fear and pain in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And for little girls and their visions and their big dreams and life moves forward, your book helps people when they're in pain. It helps, and you had mentioned a few minutes ago that you were helping somebody, a couple of people, work through some pain. And the way that you did it was through your mantras. Yeah,
through these different, depending on what you're going through, but through these different values and just loving on them. Yeah.
Were there any mantras that you thought particularly resonated for them?
I think any of them that have to do with, why be normal is a huge one. Okay. And I think it's more important than anything else. We had this coffee mug when we first got married and it said, don't be normal. And so we'd always tell our kids, it's about being yourself and being authentic. And I think authenticity is huge. And you don't have to be a kid to be dealing with it anymore. I'm like, screens down, stop listening to it. And I will share with you one of the reasons the book got written is I got off of social media. Because I got frustrated with some of it, and I just put my phone down and I shut down my accounts. And I was, my kids knew to text me. We have a fam jam, we call it, because they know mom's not going to see anything we post, so we got to send it to her. And I'm back in that world again, because part of marketing a book and getting a presence is getting back out there. But I think it's really important because people want to follow or copy, and women, it is really hard for us. I went through some health problems. I put on a lot of weight. I'm having the hardest time. This is an honest, authentic, be authentic moment. I still to this day struggle with it. I have, the hormonal issues, all the wonderful things we women face. And I've struggled. And I have never worked harder to see such slow progress in the direction I want to head. But why be normal is huge. And I've helped a few people with that one, because I think, and young women especially, moms out there with girls, tell them to put the phone down every once in a while. And that's where it pairs with the look in the mirror and love who you see, because who you're seeing here is not, not what's real. What's real is around us. So I think that's a part of it, that's a very important one. Be authentic, be okay with being you. And what you discover is you'll draw people around you that like just you, because people are craving authenticity
so powerful,
right now.
Colleen.
They're craving authenticity.
So powerful. Thank you for sharing that.
It is.
There's just so much wisdom in what you've just said, and if we could all take a moment to really let that sink in, how important that is, because especially for young women, like you said, especially for young women who are growing up in a social media world where everything's got a filter on it. It's not real.
Well, and it's for the young women, but here I am as an adult. I'm not going to lie. I was at Arizona State University, where my daughter goes to school. It was parent weekend this weekend, family weekend. And here I am gathered around my daughter and all of her friends and all of these moms. And I felt like they were just, 50-year-old Barbie dolls. And here comes Grace's mom. She's just all the love in the whole wide world, but she's definitely not a Barbie doll. And my daughter saw it on my face as I was seeing all these moms, and she just pulled me aside. She goes, I know exactly what you're thinking right now, and I want you here because I love you. Stop it. And I appreciated that, because I've taught it to her, so she taught it back to me. So I want to, if she was watching this, she'd be like, oh, Mom. I know. I'm like, so she taught it back to me. She pulled me aside and said, you're here because I love you, and everyone's going to love you. And I let it go, and I had the best time, and I made some new good friends. But it's hard, because I don't care if we're 57 or we're 17. We compare ourselves, and it's what the world teaches us to do.
Body dysmorphia
is such a huge thing.
Such a huge issue. My daughter, Emily, who's, I think 42. Hope when she hears this, she doesn't get mad at me. But Emily had some health issues this last summer, and she lost a significant amount of weight. And before, she had always everyone wanted to lose some weight, but now she's so thin, and she sees herself as not as herself, and the depression and the pressure of,
and it doesn't matter if you go too far low or too far high.
It doesn't matter.
We're struggle with that,
we're never
crazy.
Happy.
And then you just have to love and accept. Love and accept who you are. That's a huge one, and that's what a lot of these things are about in here, because it's a mindset shift. Once again, once I broke through that, even on Saturday morning, I had to break through it. I had to just tell myself, nope, don't go there. Just love your daughter, love this event. Your husband's here, he loves you, your daughter loves you, and all these parents I made friends with, they weren't looking at that. I was looking at that. I was looking at that. And so once I put that aside, we had the best day.
I think that's so wonderful. Gracie sounds like she's just a wonderful young woman.
All of her kids are. I mean, I've got to watch them grow up over the years, and every single one of them is
I am blessed.
Amazing.
They're great. They're great kids.
Well, and with great parents as well.
From great parents. Yes.
So let's go back a little bit and talk about this transition from being educators. You and Brian were educators. And then Brian decides to go into real estate. Tell us about how how this career
Well, Brian
gets created.
Brian started in business. He has a degree in business finance and financial services. So he was in business, and then there was the what do you call it? The little recession that happened not far after we got out of college in the late 80s. And so he took a classroom teacher job for a handful of years, as in transition, and then jumped back into business, always looking for the opportunity to get back into business, and had always wanted to work in real estate. So when that opportunity came back up, he jumped back in. And when we were in a place where he could, and then he just soared from there. For me, I went into education, loved it. It was, what I loved about education, for anyone that's listening, that's a teacher or thinking about it, you can be, I don't want to say ADD, but you can be all over the place with it, because you get bored with a grade level or something. If something is just kind of like, okay, I need to change, you can change school sites, you can change grade levels. There's so many things you can do with it. And I did. I started in 5th grade. I taught 6th grade. I went to middle school. I ended up in high school. I did a lot over those 20 years in a lot of different places. But when the time came, I've never been afraid to take of change or risk or overcoming obstacles. And Brian was ready to hire somebody. His business had grown so much. He was ready to hire somebody to come on and be his assistant. And I had spent the last 10 years in middle school. I served my tour of duty, and I was ready for transition. So I said, pick me. I can come and help you. And then I can write that book I've always wanted to write. And that was 15 years ago. So that transition just happened naturally, and we always got along and worked really well together. So,
Is there another book coming? Is there another book?
There are 2 more books in this head. There are 2 more books in this head that I'm really looking forward to putting out there. And I'm always open to it. One of them, former student of mine. That's the fun thing about having taught here in the Central Valley, teaching in Clovis and having kids. We've sold them homes. We called a handyman off of Yelp one day, and he knocked at the door, and he knew where he was headed because he saw the name of the house. But it didn't click with me, and we've adopted him in. He and his fiancée are in our home all the time. And so they're always over. But he inspired me with his story, and one day I decided I need to write a book about that. So yeah, and they're all about things that make positive changes in people's lives. So yeah, there's a couple out there. They're in there.
You talk a lot about positivity. That really. What is the purpose, or you're very much focused on positivity, and obviously that's a good thing. How do you see that playing out, that you're using it over and over and over again? What can it do?
What can it do? There is a natural inclination to get sucked into the vortex of negativity. I don't know how else to describe it in our world. And if we're not focused on, and it's not easy. I mean, I share this in one of the chapters. I say that people used to say that, I always see the glass half full.
Yeah.
Colleen, you see unicorns and rainbows. Well, I love them, so get over it, And my poor mother, I used to ask her as a child, Mom, security wasn't good at the hospitals back then. And, are you sure that somebody didn't accidentally take me and, you switch the babies? Because I grew up in a very quiet household, and I'm very outgoing, and I'm very positive to the point that I drive everybody crazy. But I think it's important because I do get caught up in those negative vortexes, and I don't like who I am when I get there. Nobody wants to be around me when I get there. So I try very, very hard to keep it on the positive. When things happen, I share, you're welcome to tell me. We're about solutions, not problems, is one of the mantras, and it's about positivity. And you can have a problem, and you are justified in your emotions. Don't get me wrong. My sweet husband will tell you how often I have problems and I feel justified in my emotions. But at the same time, once I express those and I get those out there, I always said you have to come up with 3 solutions to your problem, because 3 solutions really helps you identify the fact that there's more than one way to skin that cat, of getting better, fixing the problem. It also helps, I think, whether it's somebody we're training on our team, a real estate transaction. They can have lots of problems. If it's raising a child, if it's working with whoever, you realize you're not the only one in this when you have to come up with 3 solutions. Because one might take care of your own needs,
right?
But number 2, it's going to start looking at everybody else's needs. And by the time you come up with a 3rd one, usually you can decide on the one. But that's part of the positivity, because I'd just rather be there.
And it shifts the energy.
The energy you have. The energy you have. We were in the airport last night. Flight was delayed coming out of Phoenix back to here. For us, it was the only flight we had for the day, right?
Yeah.
But I was meeting people that have they were on their way they'd come from Europe and they were coming home to Fresno. I mean, we're the last stop. I'd met a lady that started in Charlotte and had another connection to get to Phoenix to get to here. And there were some tired and grumpy people as they
I'm
just
sure.
kept, because the flight, they got us, and they moved the gate twice, and then we got to the gate and the flight wasn't even there yet. And you can see people running, and I can see the gate isn't passing the windows. And I said to Brian, slow down. The plane's not even there yet. We're not going to miss anything. And it took them another hour after that. So I was just running around being Pollyanna positive to everybody. Brian was just like, there she goes. But I was like sitting down next to someone that looked like they were ready to blow. And I'm like, tell me your story today. Tell me your story. What's going on with you? And I had this one lady that ended up sitting next to me because Brian and I had gotten separated because one of us got upgraded to first class. And his name got called and he goes, oh, no, I've been married too long. She gets that seat. So the lady that I was sitting next to, she and I were talking and she said that. She goes, I heard you in the airport. You were cracking me up, so who wants to be around? Yeah. And I had one lady walk past me as she was coming on because I was seat 1A or whatever, right in the very front. And she walked past me and she touched my shoulder and she goes, thank you for your words earlier. They changed my perspective. And I was like, oh, good. I don't even know who you are, but I'm so glad they did. Because she was like, I'm never flying this airline again. I go, it doesn't have to do with the airline. There's a lot going on right now. There's not a lot of people that are in, the security and every flight's delayed. And I was telling her the story and she's like, oh, I didn't think about that. I go, that's okay. You have time, go get a coffee.
You have so many skill sets and you have so many tools. So that I see you going in and making everybody's days better, making their world better.
I try.
How do you make your world better? What do you do to...
You have to be super careful when you're a person like that because...
You're a giver.
It does leak out of you. You have to watch out because you will end up being the empty one. You just you go to bed when you need. I've been this way since I was a child. If I'm done, if I'm depleted, and sometimes it's physically and sometimes it's emotionally, I'm
Sign
done.
out.
I'm done.
You're a bit like that.
Yeah, I'm like that.
Yeah.
I'm like, I just shut down. If you try to reach me, you will not be able to reach me.
And what happens when you push yourself past that?
Oh,
Nobody wants to be around you home.
Nobody wants to be around me. That's for sure.
I've done that. And my husband knows. He'll be the first to tell me you need to go to bed.
Yeah, I
it's
will
time
shut
for you
down.
to find a place. Yeah,
I will shut down. I'll become very quiet and reserved, and I do that to protect myself. I have to refill myself. I've got to.
Yes.
And I can't do it by continuing to be out there.
No, and it is very easy to drain yourself when you're a person that is that way. Like, my kids tell me that. Like, it's crazy because I know if one of them has a problem and they're 3,000 miles away. I just get this gut feeling and I have to kind of go inside myself and pick up the phone and go, which one I'm supposed to call. And every once in a while I'll miss, but I'll call one of them and they'll go, oh, Mom, I so needed to talk to you today. But it's just that when you're the kind of person that has that need to take care of, you have to be super careful. And I'll get told at times, don't try to go fix that problem. Yeah, I should go try to fix that problem. No.
Do you ever though get to the point where I need to not fix this, I need to let them fix it?
Yeah, I do. And that's the hardest when they're people you love the most.
Yeah.
And that's sometimes on your team as a leader. Yeah. It's definitely sometimes you have to let it, like when I was a teacher, I just had to let a kid fail because that's the only way they were going to learn. And it's extraordinarily hard when it's your children because you want to fix it all for them. But sometimes you have to just let them figure that out.
So I got a phone call from one of my kids a couple of weeks ago, and that kid said, I want to come home for a couple of weeks. And I know there's a big problem. And I am just creating this big monster problem in my head because that kid wanted to come home for a couple of weeks and try and chew on something, I guess. So they were going through something. And then the next day I talked to the same kid and he's like, I'm better now. No, there's no issues here. And I can't even
lost sleep all night.
And I can't sleep.
Well,
so
I am straight honest with that child when that kind of thing happens. Do you know what you did to me?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you do understand what you do know what that does to Mom?
Yeah.
But then there's the time there was a situation 2 years ago with one of my kids, and I was on the plane the next day, and it was easier for me to go there and assess the situation, and then be available, and you do what you do. You do what you have to do. But in that situation, I only stayed a few days. I helped bring perspective, fixed what I could fix. And then I said, here's your steps. Here's your steps. Because I think that's the biggest thing, whether it's our kids or anything, we can't fix it for them. They have to come up with those. They have to take the kinds of things that are in here, and they have to, we grow through adversity, right?
Yeah,
we do. And you have to let them know that you're a safety net. I talk about trust and safety net a lot. I think that people blossom when they know, think of I'm going to a circus in my head, but when you saw all the acrobatic things, it's because they know they have a net under them. And if they have a bad night, they may get booed by the audience, but they're not going to die, right?
Yeah.
So it's that whole concept of,
that
if you
analogy.
provide that safety net and your kids, I like to say that your kids, they trust you're going to be there when they get home. I had a chapter, I remember talking about that when you have kids that behave well, you have kids that are confident, and I remember exactly at the spot. It's when we get really busy and we say we're going to do something, and then we have to change it. We know we have to change it. Oh, we have to take that client phone call in real estate. Oh, we have to go sell that house because, oh my gosh, it's the one that they've always wanted. And if we don't get there, they're not going to get it.
Ready to buy.
Oh my gosh. And we'd promised our kiddo that we were going to take him to, play ball or go to do this or whatever. Have the conversation with them. Find a replacement activity. Like, hey, instead, let's play your video game Xbox for an hour tonight.
Yeah.
And I'm so sorry, but mom has to go do this. Yeah. They really didn't want to go to the park as much as they wanted to be with you. Yeah. And so if you provide that confident safety net, no matter where they are in life, they'll work through whatever that crazy situation is.
And same thing about agents that we work with.
Agents,
right?
yes.
Right,
yes.
is that everything is an emergency when they're just getting into the business.
Oh, absolutely.
And Pam and I are very quick to run to going and solving their problem.
Yep.
Or I'll be walking down the hallway here, and somebody will say, "Do you have a minute?" And I am right there. Yep. And if something else needs to be focused on, I just tell them to wait.
Yeah.
And I have to learn how to assess what's critical and what can wait.
Right.
Some period of time.
Mm-hmm.
So
no, it is, but it's as long as they know that they can have confidence in you, whether they're your team member or your child or whatever it is, definitely.
So this is just not enough time for everything that I want to talk to you about. In my life, I've had tons of failures. But I know opportunities arise from failures if you learn to reframe those failures, right? What would you say? I mean, reflecting back, you got a story.
We have a mantra in here. It's we either win or we learn, and it's reframing failure.
Yeah.
You either win or you learn, and I think that's been a huge one. That's a huge one in our lives because we've tried a lot of stuff. We've done some really, really incredible learning situations over the years, right? But there's so many quotes about it's not how many times you go down, it's how many times you get back up.
That's right.
And I think speaking to women in particular too, we have this perfection complex. We do. I think we feel like we have to we are the glue that has to keep it all together all the time.
Absolutely.
We got to get home. We got to prove we can do it in our career. We've got to prove that, our kids are the best. We've got to make sure that our spouse is happy. We've got to make sure dinner's on the table. Well, you name it, whatever.
Yeah.
That party is thrown and everyone's happy. The holidays are coming. Is everybody's thing going to be taken care of? And you have to realize that there are going to be moments that don't go right. They don't go the way you hoped. And you just have to learn from them. There's so many. Oh, so many. So that's been a very important mantra is that whole failing forward kind of an idea is that we need to reframe what failure is. Failure is being down for the count and staying there. It's not about stumbling through the day.
Yeah, that is failure. You are absolutely right. Yeah. Getting down and staying there. Mm-hmm. And I love to say this, and Gayle always says, as Pam always says, it's not happening to you, it's happening for you. Yeah. And, those are easy words to say, but when you're in the heat of the moment, to say, why is this happening to me? And saying, okay, staying in curiosity, as Gayle always says, why is this happening for me? What is going to come out of this? How can I take this and change this from a failure to an opportunity.
And that's just so critical.
Yeah.
It's so critical because, I mean, yeah, I can, a
Especially
million
if you're-
things go through my head that I can share.
especially
Yeah,
if
yeah.
you're feeling gut punched at the time.
Oh, yeah.
Then it's just as words. But if you are doing, like you train Gracie, and I'm smart, I'm beautiful. If you're doing those mantras every day, if I'm saying to myself all the time, why is this happening
Right.
for me and not happening to me? It's critical to say that last part. So when I need it, I can pull it out.
And
which is what your book is about.
There's a little section in one of the chapters, and it's called Lessons from Barbie. And so my Julie, and then in turn my Gracie, because I had the videos, love to watch the little cartoon Barbie movies.
Yeah.
And beautiful Barbie and all of her friends flit about the world, and they do their things. But there was this one line in one of them where she was talking to one of the little people. I don't know. I named her Skipper. I don't know if that was her name. Yeah. One of her little friends, but it was about. She says to her, "What other people think of you is really none of your business."
Yeah.
And I remember her Julie struggling with, well, what does that mean, Mom? What does that mean? Mm-hmm. And it really comes down to all of that. It's understanding and framing your life around the fact that it's not all about you. And that you have to have a level of confidence that how people react to you, how we view failure, all of that. Everybody's bringing their different biases to the table, their different experiences to the table. And you just have to have confidence that you're doing the very best thing. And that if you mess up, you're not going to mess up next time, that you're going to learn from this. And you don't need to be worried about the judgment that comes from that. Because I think that's where a lot of the failure, we worry about what are they going to think of me? That transaction fell apart. What are they going to think of me because this happened? What are they going to think? How are you going to make sure that doesn't happen next time?
Yeah.
So this was
Wow.
a really good session.
You have learned to own the room,
Yeah.
girl.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys for having me. I feel blessed to be
have
here.
you back again down the road. You are such a joy to talk to.
Well, thank you very much.
I love your mindset because that's what it really is all about. It's
That's what
about
it's-
mindset.
that's what the
It's
book's
about
all about, yeah.
showing up
Every day.
every day.
And just believing in the day and making the best of it. So definitely, you guys, thank you for having me. I feel honored to have been
Our
here.
pleasure. So and thank you for joining us today on Own the Room with Pam and Gayle. We hope you leave each episode feeling inspired to lead with confidence, authenticity, and heart. So if today's conversation resonated with you, please follow, rate, and review the show. OwnTheRoom.com podcast. No, I got that wrong. OwnTheRoomPodcast.com. And your support helps us reach more women, and we really appreciate you being here today. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
You were the best. Thank you.
Thanks.